You're not gonna get out there and film anyway.
What's that on the agenda? Go ahead. I'd like to bring this joint session committee for the council side to order.
I'd like to bring the joint meeting for the commissioners and council together to order.
First thing on the agenda is Live Well Daviess County update by Purdue Extension. That's this.
That's what that is.
Okay. Just making sense.
No pressure to be at this point on the agenda. So actually, it's Purdue Extension and partners and community partners. So I'm Cindy Barber. I'm the community development educator for Purdue Extension. We are honored with facilitating a health coalition called Live Well Daviess County. We're the facilitating organization, but it is comprised of multiple community partners. So some of those partners are here. I'd like to go ahead and recognize, we had Angie Steiner here from the hospital, but she had an appointment, so she had to step out, and Kathy Sullender was staying as well, and she had to get back to the health department. So I do want to recognize that they were here. So I'm just kicking us off, and we're going to kind of trade off on how we present this to you, but you should have received in your packet the PDF of the slide deck, so hopefully you've got that to refer to. So first I'm going to call up Ashley Sudbury, who's our Community Wellness Coordinator.
So my name is Ashley Sudbury, and I started in Daviess County as a community wellness coordinator probably around 2017. So when I started, I know I came and did an introduction of myself. So if you were around then, it's good to see you again. But if not, I work specifically funded through federal SNAP Ed dollars through the nutrition education program with Purdue. So I have 4 counties that I cover. I've got Du Bois, Daviess, Martin, and Orange counties, and spend a lot of my time with Daviess and Du Bois counties. And health coalitions are just part of the work that we do. And so Live Well Daviess County, the overview, basically we are, I think if you wanted to cue in on some of the important words, collaborative partnership, and that's really what we do. We try to collaborate among partners in our county and in our community to work toward goals, common goals that we've identified. And when I say we, I mean that as a collective community. So it's not just us and our steering committee. It's not, 1 or 2 people. We spend time going out surveying people. Angie was going to talk a little bit about the community health needs assessment with Daviess Community Hospital, which is one of the key areas for Daviess County that we get that input. But then we look at other sets of data to gather kind of where those needs lie in the county. And obviously our focus is on public health, and there's a very, drawn out definition of public health in your presentation, but lots and lots of things fall under the realm of public health. And I think the mission is maybe the best way to describe that, and that's fulfilling the community's desire to create a place where we live and we work and we play, that everybody can be healthy. So our Live Well partnership, one of the strengths of having this partnership and this coalition in our county is it gives us the opportunity to link and leverage the resources for multiple and diverse different sources in the county. You can just use one organization as an example. Somebody has a strength in bookkeeping, somebody has a strength in this, somebody has access to that. We're able to collectively come together, identify those assets, put them together, and then hopefully bring forth some really good action that can benefit our county. If you look at the journey to how we got here, so Live Well is relatively new. We say that, so the timeline of Live Well is maybe longer than what it feels like it's been around because it's no secret COVID happened. But around 2018, we had the Hometown Collaboration Initiative, and placemaking was identified as like the pathway project. And so you started to hear some of these conversations about incorporating health and how do you build that into some of the development going on downtown. Carry that over, we were able to get an active living workshop funded through the Indiana Department of Health, which really looks at infrastructure related to bike and pedestrian. You could say bike pedestrian friendly, but just related to that and how that impacts a community. So we had that workshop. From there, we had action plans that were developed from some of the participants and the teams there. Carry that through to the community health needs assessment in 2019 with Daviess Community Hospital. They had identified areas of needs of the illegal and or prescription drug use, mental behavioral health, lack of affordable housing, and rural transportation options. So we knew like those were some of the pillars in the community. All these conversations, they were just kind of circling. They were linked, or they were identified, but they weren't linked. Then we started to have some informal conversations, which was fun. We would get people that would call us and say, "Did you know so-and-so is working on this?" Or "Did you hear the opportunity for that?" And there was just really not a central hub at that time that we felt these conversations were happening. In 2019, we completed a community health improvement plan. IU School of Public Health came in and helped facilitate that for us. We lovingly refer to that as our CHIP. And so in 2019, coming out of all of those things, we kind of launched this Live Well Daviess County partnership. And there again, we're just collaborating around common goals, trying to work forward, identifying the needs, figuring out who has assets to meet those needs, how we can leverage those, and then move that forward. You'll see a list of a bunch of partners. Those are primarily our leadership partners, the community leaders that are involved in our full group meetings and our full group efforts, but also note that there are many other community organizations that are involved in some of these little action items. So if we're doing a specific initiative, we try to gather whoever it is that needs to be involved in that. So the list is even longer than what you'll see in your presentation. We have 3 currently active, what we call action teams or work groups. We've got mental health and substance use disorder, access to care, and then physical activity and nutrition. So Diana, would you like to comment a little bit about the mental health?
Okay. So out of the CHIP, about a year after that, we started looking at funding that was coming from the state from the state opioid response grant from the Justice Partners through the Office of Court Services. And at that time, I think most of you know and know that Brian Peake came on board with a $60,000 grant that started Daviess County Peer Recovery out of the Community Corrections Office. And I was tasked by Judge Smith to figure out a way to continue that funding if that opioid response grant money was not there. So in a conversation with Dr. Priscilla Barnes, who was a part of our CHIP process that we had, I kind of tasked her with her university ability to find a grant that we might be able to access to continue to have peer recovery in Washington and Daviess County, as we saw a benefit to it. Even though with his starting and COVID hitting 3 to 4 months in, we still saw a grave need for that in our community, and with the numbers of people that were having those related issues and just not for sure where to seek access for treatment and services. So that was our first initial grant that we got. So in conversations with Priscilla, she did a research for us and found the federal grant of HRSA, which out of that grant, we've developed a consortium of providers and community partners to come together to look at addressing the area of substance use and mental health in Daviess County, and where can we go to advance the access to care for those individuals, because a lot of people don't know where to go or how to access that, and we want to make sure that that information is readily available to everyone so that they can seek treatment and feel free to seek treatment without any retribution or a lash back from that. So out of that, we came up with 15 consortium members and partners, and Dr. Barnes applied for us on behalf of the Community Center for Rural Engagement at IU, and applied, and we were awarded $1 million over the next 4 years, which we're almost into 1 full year now. Out of that, several of us, including Daviess County Community Corrections, was recipients of sub-recipient awards of that. To continue with peer recovery, we are looking at possibly looking at a recovery hub in our community, which means it'll be a location where individuals can go to seek help, whether they want to look for in-place treatment, they want to look for AA meeting, they want to just find a peer recovery coach, they want to find some classes or training. We've got big goals and ideas of that somewhere here over the next 3 years to develop this for us. So then, while we were waiting to figure out whether or not we were going to get the HRSA grant, another offer came from the Department of Mental Health and addiction here in the state of Indiana that was centered on Southwest Indiana, looking for counties that could partner together with other counties to look at developing a mobile integrated team model of addressing substance use and mental health within their communities. So we partner, Samaritan Center, my office, and Good Samaritan Hospital partner together to get this DMHA grant with almost $500,000 coming towards Daviess County's efforts in this goal, which DCH has been the huge recipient of that. And they have now hired 3 more full-time peer recovery coaches to work out of the hospital and in the hospital system and in the community, and hired administrator for that program out of DCH. So, and it also has allowed us to also sustain Brian and to help him out in some of his efforts through our office.
How many of those coaches did you say you had?
We have 3 full-time, and Brian makes 4. 3 of them are considered hospital employees, and their supervisor has now become a certified peer recovery coach, and Brian is. And also, out of this money, we were awarded some funds to create a jail reentry project coordinator, which she just started in working with Gary and inmates at the jail. And she just finished 2 of her 3 certifications to become a full-time peer recovery coach. And next month, hopefully she will be. And then we'll have 5 full-time peer recovery coaches in Daviess County. Also, I think it's in the paper coming out, but also we just got our initial grant that we got for Brian, and have now doing crisis intervention team training, which is going on now at the jail. We thank Gary for allowing us to have it there, but it is taking all those involved with law enforcement right now and the hospital system and having conversations about what to do with people in crisis and when they first come in contact with the police before they ever enter the criminal justice system, and how can we help them, and how can we lessen their contact with the criminal justice system, and how we can help them better in the community prior to that. So we do have the further set of training later on this year that will involve jail personnel and my office and probation to talk about how do we deal with people in crisis while they're actively being supervised in one of our programs or in our local jail. So, and with Heather being a full-time peer recovery coach, we look at her being in there to be able to do peer recovery within the jail. We also have the possibility of expanding that possibly with some more DMHA money coming from Mental Health America of Indiana to bring that into the jail to even establish a greater access to care within the jail for mental health and substance use treatment. So, any questions? Yes, Ron.
Pete Aldridge involved in any of your programs?
Yes, Pete he is actively a part of our consortium that we have on the HRSA grant, because we do have a subcommittee, Ron, that we're looking at recovery housing for individuals when they are released from the jail who don't have a sober living environment to go in or are returning from a treatment facility. So we have been having Pete involved with that conversation as to how we can use what he has. Also, the Serenity House that we have here in town are both sober living environments. They are partnering with us on how they can be of help to us upon release from treatment facilities and the jail situation. Yes, he has been actively involved.
So in our Access to Care Action Team, if you've heard of the IHOPE, the big IHOPE initiative at the state, so it's a complex grant and it's a complex thing, and so there are kind of different tiers. So there's the big IHOPE, I don't even know what it was, like 9 million, something like that Purdue Healthcare Advisors is involved in, and then there are also some smaller buckets that were awarded out to other partners across the state. We've also in Daviess County been able to tap into those funds. So from our connections within our partnership with Live Well, we were able to, if you've heard of Find Help, it used to be called Aunt Bertha, but it's now called findhelp.org. And it's a social care network where people at any level, so if you're the individual, if you're the one seeking care, if you're the one helping somebody seek care, or if you're on the back end and you actually provide the care, it's an online system that anybody can go into. It is free for communities to use. However, you can also purchase you can purchase on the, it gives you more freedom and more ability within the site. So we are involved. Daviess County it's probably 6 or 7 counties that are involved in this that we, layering on top of a couple other in the county, now have access to. So that'll give us better insight also into what some of the county's needs are. We can identify what services people are looking for, where maybe there are gaps in what we've got available in the county. So that is something we are working on. I think last week we had just held another training at Daviess Community Hospital to get people familiar with that and onboard it. And then, so we also were a part of a community navigation model, and some of what Diana has talked about with the peer recovery, that's been very much a part of that. So just how do you navigate services within your county? I mean, I think we all, depending on, it may not be health related for us, but you kind of wonder, how do I get from point A to point B, and what does that have to do with point C, and on and on. So we've been involved with that, and that has gone really well for us too in the county. Our physical activity and nutrition action team, there again, we've been able to leverage some of those IHOPE dollars coming out from the state. IUCRE, they have the capacity to submit for the funds for that, which is excellent for communities like us, because that takes some of that administrative and that weight off of us and allows us to kind of do the work. One of those is a food as medicine pilot. I don't know if you've heard of a produce prescription model or project in the past. Essentially, it's kind of that theory that, you know, if somebody's seeking medical care but their diet is an issue, rather than just giving them a prescription medication and writing that off, like really trying to get to the root of how to get people engaged with more of that whole health function. So our food as medicine pilot should kick off here May, June. We've partnered, the Produce Patch will be providing what they have available to them, the produce pieces, to help fill that. Our nutrition education team is going to provide education. RSVP has been a very valuable partner in that they're going to utilize some of their volunteers to help package these produce boxes. We're piloting with approximately 20 participants. They have not been identified yet. We're working hopefully with the Healthy Start Communities That Care program out of Daviess Community Hospital to identify them, and we're primarily targeting expecting mothers or mothers with young children who are involved in those services. And so they'll get a free box of, it's food, but it's a specific recipe that they're going to get, and they're going to get the education that goes along with that. Not just the how do you prepare it, but also the health benefits. So that's something we're piloting for Daviess County, hopeful in the future to continue that work. We've got a really cool thing starting with Jamestown. We've done a few things over the years with them as far as infrastructure. We were able to assist the city with their bus stop signage, the transit signage, a couple years ago, and we've been trying to build on that each year with some smaller funds that we have available. So this year we're working on a bike share program, so it's very similar to like when you go to the library and check out a book, except for them they'll have bikes and the safety equipment available to them. They'll also get the training, like bike safety training, like don't ride your bike on the sidewalk, you know, that you have to obey with all of that stuff will be rolled into that. We actually get to go shopping for bikes later today, so that's kind of fun. So those are some of the smaller, you know, the smaller dollars, but really when you start layering that up, that all adds up together. We've had the opportunity, do you want to talk about the?
So when Ashley talked about kind of leveraging our assets, Purdue Extension brings the education piece as well as the facilitation piece. So 2 weeks ago today, we wanted to look at cultural competency for our partners, so we offered a day we called Exploring Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging. We started out, Luis is trained in a Navigating Difference program, so we did a cultural awareness session in the morning. We had a great lunch. Gallo's Mexican Bakery did all the catering that day, so that was delicious, and she shared information about the types of foods, and her family gets, you know, brings their butter from Mexico City, and just different cultural pieces there. After lunch, we had sisters from St. Benedict at Ferdinand came up, and they did an Immigration 101 training, which was really helpful. Our organizations want to understand better the challenges that our immigration population is facing. So they gave a great overview on the immigration process, how that works, really understanding documentation and different types of documentation for our community members and what the limits might be there for those folks that are seeking care. We did 2 panels, one with immigrants shared their stories, which was super powerful for our organizations to hear the depth of kind of the life experience of our immigrants. And then we closed with a panel that was Purdue Farms had a representative to talk about employer needs, the health department, faith community, and then the schools, just, what challenges they have in serving our immigrant population. It was a powerful day, one we hope to repeat and could repeat in other sectors of the community, but this one was focused on health. Out of that, we'll add an action team that will look at health equity. One of the pieces came up was housing was an issue, access to care was an issue, so there's a lot of pieces that are specific to our immigrant population that we want to make sure we're addressing through Live Well if we can with our partners. Just some announcements, and they're in your packet. One of the things, Diana and I are blessed to co-chair a stigma reduction task force. So we work with a group on stigma reduction around mental health and substance use disorder. So Diana's been, integral in planning a community event on May 3rd at Bethany. So we'll have some of the same panels that they've been using for their CIT training at the jail, hearing firsthand from folks that are in recovery about their life experience, and then talking in the community about the need for reduction of stigma around substance use disorder and mental health. That will also segue into a month or so later doing some lunch and learns at the hospital for employers. We've got some really key employers that are using peer recovery coaches in their as a part of their workforce. Purdue Farms is one, Olan is one. And that way they're hopefully retaining employees, helping those employees get healthy, and then also maybe an attraction piece for folks that have been in the justice system or are in recovery, that they feel more comfortable in that workplace with the support they're receiving. So be looking for that. 6:30 May 3rd at Bethany is the community session. Angie was here to talk about the community health needs assessment. Hopefully you know about that, but that will kick off with its first meeting in May. So that takes place this summer. So we'll have an opportunity to take that information, get into that process again with the CHIP to look at re-examining our action teams and where we need to do some tweaking based on that assessment. And then finally, you're well aware that we are a recipient county and the city of HELP, the Hoosier Enduring Legacy Program, which replaced the Stellar Communities Program with Okra. There is a pillar of hope, hope. When Brian and I wrote the application, he's like, you wrote hope again. I know HELP seems funny to me. HELP, that is promoting community wellness. So we certainly see that Live Well could be instrumental in helping guide that committee work and the work that comes out of that. And the nice thing is IDOH will hold that bucket of money for HELP, and we have partnerships with actually the actual person that helps make those decisions through the Daviess Advances Recovery Access Consortium. So we're already having HELP conversations with her around funding opportunities that might be available to us. And that is the conclusion of What's Up with Live Well.
Lot going on.
It's exciting, and that's where we feel we kind of get down in the work, and we realize we don't communicate as much as we should. So thank you for giving us the opportunity today to share that with you. If you know folks, we have a lot of people on board, but if you know folks that you talk to that aren't aware of it, please feel free to direct them to our office or to any of us. We meet quarterly as a full consortium, and then the action teams are mostly meeting at least monthly, if not more. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your support.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. This next thing on our agenda is Commissioner spoke about reestablishing the cumulative cap fund. One thing, wanted to get a kind of joint consensus, because you had mentioned in the meeting, what's the council think? As spending increases, of course, we're always looking for ways to fund things. So I wanted to give a chance for all of us to get together to discuss that. My opinion is, I kind of with you, property taxes are kind of rough on people. But again, if we do that, maybe we can offset some costs with other things. So you have cum cap, but now we're looking at doing blighted properties, which doesn't go into that fund, but can we offset some costs so that we can, we're gonna have increased spending? Just thoughts that I put out there. I just want to have a brief conversation about it.
Is the fund balance on here, that 1138, is that the?
1138 is
Okay.
for PCD.
Like Nathan said, it's not a whole lot of money, but, could we offset some things, like if we did the blighted, that amount of money, could something be spent there and we could shift some dollars around to, I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there. It's something we can.
5 million there.
But, we'll use some of that for some
Yeah,
of
we'll
the
use some for the house,
courthouse,
things.
things like that.
We still talk about building some building up the highway garage. Different things like that.
So, as we plan those projects, we gotta be thinking about how we're gonna fund it. Anybody have any other thoughts, especially from the council side?
Not talking about a lot of money, but
Right.
raising anything right now is,
After I got my tax statements last week,
I think we all seen it.
it's not putting the
Yeah.
other side of the balance sheet. That's what we're spending.
So, on the tax statement, again, people I've talked to were up 9 to 12%. Average budget increased by that much? What's the total take on taxes?
Combination of factors, I think, is, my understanding, the biggest, factor may be AV, obviously, because that's your base and your calculation. So it's a bit of all of those things that you're talking about.
Was that a surprise when budget was done that AV was going up that much? Was
Well,
it part of the
When we do
calculation?
our budget, hearings and have those different information come from those projections, that's where it's key for the council to look at that type of thing. You can kind of project what they are estimating for AV.
That comes
You
in
know,
around July-ish.
AV is a big talking point right now, even on the state legislatively. The way that does AV and how that affects the taxes.
So how did their projection this year compare to what is now the reality?
Go back and review that. That was back in July and August when we were working those numbers, and I couldn't really tell you that off the top of my head. But as council's looking at that for coming up, because we are on the cusp of looking at the budget cycle again this year, you will know more how those pieces fit together and can see that.
Just staying on a trend across the United States, AV's up pretty hard in different places. I mean, got a 9 or 12%.
Right, but on
Across the
school
country, it's
board,
higher
we'd
than
always
that.
have two factors, the AV and then the rate, and we would always adjust the rate depending on the AV, so it looks to me like there was a miscalculation on the AV. Because based on budget, there's no reason taxes should go up 9 to 12%. What I'm hearing is across the board.
I looked at, I've got 4 different properties. It was about 7% on all mine.
I got some in Offordsville. Didn't mean the county rate went down.
I mean, and I
So
would be
your
interested.
trending on AV is a big factor. And talk a little bit about those factors, how that works on the AV side.
Well, and then how does that match up with Jason's projections?
Why the budget so critical with guys have lights trying.
Yeah, and with the blighted properties, the goal is for that to be a break. I mean, that they're through this would be cleanup plus overhead. Talking with Alan, just about the building permit fees. A permit. Because we get the assessed value, we get additional property taxes. In the city, there's certain I'm not. I give us $3 grand. We're not doing anything. If I have a blighted building, I have to pay overhead of $40,000. Then, if there's 10 properties we look at, do the math. Look, you don't want to do buildings we only 10, you may have a $4,000. And then we'll get additional property taxes. So anyway, I think user's tax is.
They will make the argument that's what they're trying to do. Build something.
Yeah, not in the county. Here's about it. It's costing us. I know, it's like,
I think you probably, shuffling paperwork.
it's like. But it gets builders up. Dubois County does.
I think the biggest ask when we put that in, I worked on that for a long time, was, the biggest ask was to control the spot zoning. Try to control it, do the whole county or not at all. That's what originally moved.
That made sense at the time, I'd say. Why did we do it?
So,
Is it still doing it? Otherwise, you have '70s.
They're gonna be against them until somebody goes.
I don't disagree, but for 200 years, let's keep going back to that, you know, we seem to be okay for 2014. But, yeah. So plan.
There is. You can make it very productive. This human rate that we're talking about, possibly, when's the deadline on having to do this?
We have to have all the paperwork, we have to have notice, to have advertising requirements and to the state by May 31st. That's why, if the days we can.
we're running out of time on it.
Yeah, me personally, I'm not in favor of raising it right now. You know, maybe in a year or two, if things, the economy changes, I think we've all got enough taxes, and folks do too, and gasoline at $4 a gallon. I'm not in favor of raising it this year.
Yeah, that's just having the discussion, kind of getting it out there, because we talk separately, and this is kind of our work session.
But I mean, I hate it for Patty, her office and Grant, because
All the
to
work.
get this thing, to get it to here, if we chose to do it, we had to have everything in place, right?
Right.
So,
It was a lot of work.
hats off to you guys for getting all that taken care of.
Recommendation that it be in that
Yeah, I think so. Maybe,
regulated.
maybe the first joint session of the year, we gotta discuss that every time. That way it gives us time.
Good idea.
That rate will
Right.
continue.
And maybe next year there'll be a big concern where we need to go after it, but I'm not, I don't think I want.
Maybe we put that on our first meeting of the year, joint commissioner and council. We'll all discuss it as a whole. A bunch of work again, but get nowhere, so.
Before- Actually, that's a good, to kind of move it forward. I know everybody's busy, because we want to move forward, but the last thing on our agenda, if we have anything else, was the capital assets inventory. And that was set, because everybody received information on changes that we'd like to make. That way we, take some of those lower assets. When they buy computers and things like that, they have to inventory that. Not just capital assets and things. Everybody have a chance to look at that.
Sure.
I actually didn't see
I
that.
need to address, because
Sorry.
that's enhanced that are coming down that we are required to do as far as capital assets. Misty, want to step up here? So Misty is our go-to person on this. She manages currently our capital assets on an Excel sheet, working with each department, and it's reviewed annually. We have to report it on gateway. So the thing that we have asked to do, we're working with Data Pit Stop, who have a current program that we use for excise, but within that, he already has this, and we were already paying for it, so we just this. So, but to do this, we had to have an updated capital policy, opportunity to go part of the tracking. Will come in department, and each department, just like they are now, they're responsible for doing their own tracking, capital assets, out of the inventory. But they will be doing it. So it will be. But with that, there's more layers with auditing that. So thresholds need to be set, and then capital asset threshold, I think currently ours is 4,000. So we're fine if you want to leave it that way and like that, but the inventory, so items that, things like that, we need a threshold for that. Departments, if they purchase something, if it's over a dollar amount, it has to go on the inventory. Dale Quakenbush is already working on it. Tracking with then you have the other big part of this. Assets. This is land, buildings, what else you can.
Yeah, it's all infrastructure, cars. That's something I had to report on already, and we don't have it in our ordinance laid out, so I need some guidelines laid out so that I can do the depreciation. That's what State Board of Accounts will audit against is our ordinance. And then as far as the inventory component, that's coming, probably reporting on 2022, that'll be 2023. There's several counties that have already implemented that into their ordinance. So it's not everybody trying to inventory on all these items at once. We're just gradually, as we buy new things, track them and they're ready.
The individual, gonna be an individual come down and help us
Yes.
On the department.
to track their own inventory.
Yes, and he'll
What does
show
that
how to
cost
get
us?
on. We already
Already
pay for
paid
it. We're
for it.
utilizing a service that we already have.
Like that idea.
Yeah,
so-
I'm good then.
They just input it, and there's an audit process that I have to audit it and approve it. It'll come to me
There's more work for
and
the
flag
auditor.
me.
Who determines the useful life of the?
That's in the ordinance you guys will lay
Okay.
out. There's examples of what other counties have done,
Okay.
but
And disposal.
Yeah.
Doesn't your list mirror what Paul Williams has for insurance coverage?
Well, we use that, but that's not all inclusive. But it's much bigger that we're being asked for. A lot more to it.
What's the purpose of it? Why are they asking?
You would have to.
They wanna know more of your business, that's the bottom line.
So, but it does go hand in hand with the goals that you had. In particular, we were talking about computers, placement.
Yeah.
So this will be an aid that will take care of that goal.
Yeah.
And maybe some others that we're not aware of. But anytime that they buy something, the department, if they purchase something that's $500, has to go in and put it on that
Inventory sheet.
site, yeah, I'm gonna say right now.
Website.
And then on us, on the auditor's office, we're having an audit on the backside of
That's
that.
capital.
And I think right now, we're just gonna have to do it as
As an
a
industry.
sample audit on things. We can't audit every invoice that Ellen pays against the site. So we're gonna have to do sample audits, and then we find somebody that's not complying with it.
Bring them up.
Back to-
Is it one of those things, I mean, it's obviously it's dollar value.
Right.
Starting.
So, but I know in previous life, And in situations where it's also highly preferable items such as telephones and IT equipment, those kinds of things, where, and then other things, we were having to inventory calculator.
Well, that's
Yeah.
our
I
thing,
mean,
we don't,
it's-
Don't
we
wanna
ask
do
if
that.
we don't
No,
put it
we
down,
don't, but
so
so,
that
so,
we're
but
gonna
we
do
probably
that.
need to identify though.
What is that threshold?
Is it IT equipment? Is there anything else that's, people would walk off with if they had a chance? Things that we need, more highly preferable things that need to be.
That's why if we set a dollar amount, it makes it across the board, what either is or it's not, so.
We updated this thing in 2016, looks like, August 2016. We set a $4,000 limit at the time.
For capital assets.
Assets, yeah, so
But we don't-
anything that's this or anything else tangible like this, we dollar value.
That would be
And
the
that's more
inventory that's
inventory,
coming.
right.
Biggest thing is setting depreciation up and getting the training going, because we're already in April. By the time we get this done and get the training going, departments are gonna be months into the year and behind on entering stuff, so.
And is there a guideline they're gonna make you use for depreciation, or can we establish our own?
You establish that.
We establish.
It's in the ordinance here for the commissioners, and there's, like vehicles, that might be something you guys, some counties broke out differently. For instance, the sheriff's department, their vehicles are gonna wear out quicker than like Scott Schneer's truck that he, things like that. So basic general guidelines and maybe some specifications as well.
So in your packet, today it was just to bring to you,
There's
go
some
back and look
examples.
at it, there's some examples. Hopefully by next one, if we can have those plug in, or those different places that Grant can have that ready.
Thoughts on a limit, dollar limit? Buildings or whatever.
Well, I think you're gonna have, like, for IT equipment, I mean, it's $500 limit. I think you gotta specify what that is, otherwise you're gonna have office furniture and everything that you're gonna be tagging. I think we have to break that out into some kind of directive.
Category.
Yeah. I mean, your IT equipment, anything, 500 and under, which that would include these. Stuff like that.
And I don't
Yeah, even if you look at cell phones, they're not cheap. I mean, if you're not
No.
getting the deal on it, you're paying $1,000 for that anyway. So. Walking computer. Then you kinda know where everything is.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of other equipment out there. I mean, just scary situation, I don't know, I mean,
100,000?
About 4,000 is fine, except for electronics and IT. That's 500.
Well, you're
Well, that's-
distinguishing between capital assets.
That's
and
capital
inventory.
assets and inventory. So the 500 was like inventory. Or whatever we determine.
Would that be an undue burden? Would,
I did it when I was. Better cards. Steamer table.
I would encourage us just to keep this simple. Depreciation is not. So I would say, what's the state requirements? Why are they wanting us to put in the state requirement? 'Cause we can't even. We as in we, hard to keep track of the buildings we have.
I mean, sidewalks. I mean, it's very, us.
Is that easy to steal?
Well,
mean,
that's
I-
just part of it.
not without a backhoe.
Okay, Nathan, let's make this simple,
We
not
would be
hard.
good stewards, but
Make
if
it simple, not hard.
state work accounts finds us on one of these, okay, we'll be better at it.
Yeah. Don't make it difficult.
I can tell you,
Ask for permission, just beg for forgiveness?
That's what I'm thinking. We wanna meet the state.
I think as long as we do the minimum requirements, we'll be fine, right?
We just have to have something established, cause I'll have to report on it again
So
next year.
is there a list, I mean, does that company have a list of what's minimum requirements, or do we know?
We have to have a depreciation schedule. The inventory is not in place yet, but like I said, they could say it's effective for my 2023 reporting for 2022, and then I have to backtrack and try and figure out what all of 2022 is. That's why most of the counties have already put it in place.
My suggestion would be, tell us the guidelines, tell us what you feel we need to do. Do it. Probably pass something very
Okay. Sounds good, sounds good. Just, for example, on the inventory, some things that counties have addressed specifically because of the lower threshold are weapons for sheriff's department, radios, computers, scanners, power tools, like for the maintenance department, small motor equipment, things like that. So that's why we had, that can fall in the, $200-300 range, not the $500
The
range.
Lake County ordinance.
Like who,
Lake
federal
County
government,
statute.
Kelly, show how many calculators you got? The drills hanging everywhere.
We gotta make this simple and not hard.
Yeah, they're trying to fix Lake
So that's your job, is just the old KISS method, and we'll go on, right?
Okay, so.
Even if it's 1,000, I wouldn't.
We done on that subject? Two quick questions. Where are we at on Montgomery Bridge?
Yeah, we're waiting to see if we get the CC.
Is,
We reached out to NDOT to see, is there any way we can expedite that? So, last I stayed with Laura Philippi, is that they're on standby. And the plan is, we get that money, put it out for bid. Go out to bid.
best case, no construction this year.
Worst case, no construction this year, it would start in March. But they feel they can start construction in June and be done by November.
Something somebody asked me, sure thing. Whenever we get the floods in the spring and the fall, obviously Brisbane, such a short stretch. Is there anything there on the Daviess County side that could be done? Grant money, something, like if you, well, something happens to you where you live, you need to go to the hospital, you're.
Well, here's what we did, we paved Shipman Seal 950 South. Then that's your third option, turn on 950 South. My guesstimate is we try to raise that road, it's gonna require a water hydrology
Well,
study.
that's what happens, so
And it's
NDOT's gonna tell you,
gonna
can't
be-
back up water upstream. But it's always their argument, like 250 cents.
It'll be a $1 to $2 million endeavor just to get the studies.
That has to be done.
That has to be, anytime you shift water
Upstream.
you have to do some sort of hydrology study. So we did 950 South because it's gonna get you to the same spot. Working with Martin County. At least gotta pave up. So that was kind of the work. Because Portersville floods 2 weeks after if the rain. Something that we can certainly look into, but my assumption is built it the way they built it, offset that.
It's farm ground right there, so it's whatever level it was, you cannot back up water. Like you
That's
can't
a
back up,
DOA subject.
it's like you can't back up water
So
in
we'd
your
have to
neighbor,
build some
right?
sort of
So,
bridge from, well, from Sturgis's, your driveway, probably be some sort of bridge with us.
on
And
this
then you
bridge,
got
we'll build it.
Then you got your access point to your DNR, Fish and Wildlife.
Since you guys are talking about water, does anyone, that guy that came to our meeting, talked about the Prairie Creek
Right.
bridges on our, he left a whole packet at my house.
Yeah, he
Which
came
is
by
very interesting and a little scary
yeah.
to be honest. Have you guys had any conversations with?
It was the Prairie Creek Board. They brought information about if things flooded, the 50-year
Started
floods.
at
but
Wrightsville.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, he had some worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Well, his worst case were like, but in Kentucky, it just happened. So, he was talking about maybe funding there for them to do some of that.
It's like $4 million. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a lot of
Well, he
money.
came to the ARPA.
He came to the ARPA.
Yeah.
committee, so, But yeah, it's,
But if you look at the floodplain maps for that area up there, you gotta figure show those those floodplain maps, nothing in existence, there's no ditches, no nothing.
Well, he showed, like Graver Post, our
He
buildings that we built would be about 6 feet underwater.
Yeah, he was pretty dramatic. I mean, I was actually surprised.
But like I said, that's taken out of context, really,
Yeah.
it really is.
Yeah.
Well, could it get there? Possibly.
Yeah.
Will it get there?
Well,
Probably
what he
not.
was talking about is federal mandates on that, on the levies. You
Because
know,
they're not built to.
they're not built to the
the
spec for
standard
some of
that
that stuff.
needs
So
to
he
be.
says they're gonna be mandated. He thinks they'll be
Be prepared.
federally funded, but he wanted to make us aware. He didn't know what the ARPA money was about. It was Dale Thicklin.
And if that floods, we got,
We got issues.
Like I said, all those terraces and everything down through there, they built those floodplain maps, nothing's there. No levees, no nothing, no terraces, no nothing. It floods, and this is what it shows, right? So with all the levees in place and terraces and drainage,
One thing he mentioned too was
I
a
think
lot
they
of
gotta
the,
work on their $4 million, gotta work on Prairie Creek itself.
yeah.
To
He was
redig
talking
it.
about a lot of people that build buildings in the floodplain. Houses because it's on family property, whatever. Said that's. I
You're doing a
shouldn't have
good
been,
job
allowed-
of-
shouldn't have been allowed to build in those spots.
Raising the alert.
Right. So, we have nothing else on the agenda. One thing that I know, we're trying to be mindful of time. Today was a very long day. In going forward, do we want to separate this to a different day? Because, I mean, this is a really long day for.
Yeah, I think so. I think, I mean, these meetings are awesome. I love it. And I would like, my initial thought of these meetings, where we want to be. Then is there any action, hot items we need to talk about? Instead of, like the Purdue extension was great. I didn't expect to see.
Right.
Purdue extension. Great, wonderful. That was a surprise. I prefer.
we sit through that, you sit through this.
Better maybe do it on the same day at a time. Shouldn't have to come to our meeting.
I actually learned some stuff though coming to,
What
besides what's just in the paper. Yeah, we can go anytime, that's true.
But you can sit at your desk and watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But time-wise, not knowing how long these meetings will last, it
It's-
probably will
makes
better
it
do
harder,
it.
yeah.
You made a good point, probably when we have it, maybe patience to this.
Yeah, I would.
I think that would work out better, more of a brainstorming.
I mean, unless this group says, yeah, that's probably. I like the information. The 3.5 hours a meeting.
Little overload.
Yeah, my AD.
So, for the auditor's office, then, schedules, not the quarterly meetings that we're gonna do.
But that joint meeting is,
Separate day,
Where we
regular
were.
schedule. So I just,
Doesn't have to be at 9, it can be.
Or on that date, whenever we do that.
so the two presidents, auditor's office, will revise all of the advertised. So I
just
think.
kind of straighten up. Hold on to those titles.
This morning, we can change that real quick.
It was not on the agenda, so we get.
Can I resign from this position?
You have to, yeah, that's the only,
So do you need a motion to adjourn?
For the council, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Tony, and then I have Tom. All in favor?
Aye. A motion by Nathan Gabhart. Second by Ron, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
When do we wanna do that, salary?
We need to start that process. You know, we're starting to get some stuff from.
See you guys.
See you guys.
See ya.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
thanks,
much.
guys.
Great job. Take the rest of the day off.
CPI and stuff like that, so, you know, a lot of the stuff we don't get until